G'day gamers, Aussie Wargamer here in Moree, Australia, and welcome to my channel. On this episode, I'm going to talk about the new edition of Age of Sigmar and list 5 things I want to see and 3 things I don't. So let's get to it, eh? So G-Dubs are releasing the 2nd edition of Age of Sigmar in June, and there's been lots of little hints and even more speculation on what's coming. The most important thing for me, though, is that they keep the game simple and change as little as possible. I reckon the beauty of Age of Sigmar is its simplicity, and as long as that stays, we should be golden. Everything points to that being the case, which is great, but that's the number one thing I want to see in this new edition. I think there is some great opportunity here, though, to increase clarity, and I think they should include rules on battalions, how they work, and how they can be deployed in the main rules. The stuff on battalions is vague at best, and usually tucked away in the depths of a battle tome, so I reckon clarifying that in the core rules would be a good step forward. As part of this preview, there seems to be a strong focus on magic, and a bit of a shake-up, and the models for the cinematic sorcery look bonza. But what I'd love to see is a core spell lore that all wizards can access. 6 spells, including Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt, and wizards can choose or roll for 2 of them at the start of each game. I think that would create a nice strategic level to the game without being too complex. Most armies are going to choose Mystic Shield anyway, because that's a stinking useful spell, but just having those options would be really interesting, I reckon. Another part of the preview was the comment that there's no more shooting out of combat, which is a rule I think most people were wanting anyway, so it'll be interesting to see if we can still shoot into combat. I reckon the way forward is to say that you can only shoot at units that are within 3 inches of friendly units if you also are within 3 inches of that enemy unit, and you can only target those enemy units. That way, you're not shooting into combat and risking your own guys getting shot, nor can you shoot at some other enemy unit while there's one already breathing down your neck, but you can still shoot enemies that are close enough to be in combat with. I'm no rules writer, so I'm sure it could be said more eloquently than that, but I think that's the way to go with shooting. It makes more sense narratively, and it will balance out overpowered shooting a little, I reckon. The last thing I want isn't so much about the new Age of Sigmar, but as a servant of Nagash, I'd love the new Nighthaunt to be able to interact with legions of Nagash in some way. It's quite unlikely, I know, but I'd love to be able to take some of those new Nighthaunt models in a legion's army. I think it'd also be thematic if Nagash was able to lead Nighthaunts on the battlefield, but I'm not sure how they'd do that. Either way, I'll be collecting those models for sure. There's a few things I want to touch on that I don't want changed. The first is any change to Battle Shock. Some people advocate Battle Shock should be mortal wounds rather than losing models, and I can see why. Losing a 4 wound model to Battle Shock is a much harder hit than losing a 1 wound model. But I think the system works in that higher wound models should be losing less each turn anyway, so it all evens out. I think it's a system that works and doesn't need to change. I also like the way combat activations work and think they should stay the same rather than having a system where everything that charges goes first or something like that. I think it's very unique to Age of Sigmar and provides a great level of strategy in what you charge and when, who you decide to activate, and who you engage in combat. It's a system that should remain the same. Finally, I know I'm dreaming here, but I just don't want to see people rage quitting once they see the changes because change is objectively bad and people aren't willing to try things before they pass judgment on it. Wishful thinking, I know, but a man can dream, can't he? Well, that's all from me. Thanks for watching, and as always, subscribe if you want to hear more of my voice. Catch yous later.